Welcome to a brand new episode of the Bold Take Podcast. I'm Austin Hill. With me, as always, is Austin Wader. And today we are back talking college football action. And look, we'll just get it out of the way right away. You thought it was a slow week of college football, and look what happened. I hate to say it. I hate to say that we were right. But look, we didn't just say trap game over and over and over again for fun. This is what happens in these kind of weeks for college football. Teams take their foot off the gas. They think that they can come out and coast to a win against an unranked opponent, an unproven opponent, and they get caught sleeping. Look, this is the most losses by an AP top 25 team since week 2 of this year. When I brought this stat up for week 2 of this year, where 6 teams lost, 7 top 25 teams lost, and it should have been the ACC booth has to absolutely be persecuted at this point. What's it like? I feel like DeMarcus Cousins. It's obvious. Like if y'all aren't seeing what's happening, I hope y'all are seeing it because this is exactly what it is. Look, last week I said it the week before. Maybe they made overall they made the right call in the Virginia Tech game. It wasn't a touchdown, but there wasn't any evidence to overturn it. This one, clear as day targeting that would pretty much have ended this game, or at least put Miami in a huge bind. Certainly, almost would have certainly resulted in points for Cal, and just an absolute drive killer on an obvious targeting call that was overruled. The flag was picked up in review. It's fraudulent. And while I'm talking about this, I'm thinking about our top 25 that we're going to do in a second. So don't mind me as I walk across my house because I wrote it down on
Yeah.
paper. A little
Don't worry.
spoiler for
I'll
what.
take the lead while you get that.
Yeah,
No, we tried to tell you guys right at the start of our show. You didn't even have to watch our show for more than a minute, and we tried telling you this is where they get you on weeks like this. And look what happens. Obviously, all the upsets that happen, all the crazy things that happen. This was easily the most entertaining weekend of the season, and it was a weekend that no one even thought was going to be that entertaining. So. That's why we're saying you thought it was apple picking weekend last weekend. No, no, you can't take a week off in the sport. You can't take
no,
a week off because incredible stuff like this happens. And after a weekend like that with all those upsets, we get a weekend of full of ranked matchups as our reward for watching all that fun and making it through last weekend. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about not just last week, but all the fun games coming up this weekend.
yeah. And so I kind of started going off on this tangent. And even though it was basically the last big game played this weekend, let's talk about it. Miami bailed out by the ACC reviewed team in a comeback victory at Cal. Look, all honesty, Miami should have been out of the top 10. Cal probably should have snuck into the top 25. But instead, the ACC has its way and defends its top dog. You've heard my thoughts. You've heard what I think. Let's hear your thoughts, Waiter, on this bowl game.
Now listen, obviously, this being a Miami Hurricanes podcast, granted, it's no longer a Missouri podcast after what we saw in College
No.
Station this weekend. Um, not to be mean about them, if we know what we saw there. But
Yeah.
listen, as someone who hyped up Miami Star of the Year, that one against Virginia Tech last week was a whole episode. But in the end, I said, you know what? Even though it was a wholesome fiasco, they made the right call in the end. So it was not as big of a deal to me as maybe two others. Okay, this weekend has me concerned. Now listen, don't get me wrong. Cal blew a 35-10 lead pretty much before this happened. So I'm not saying it's completely on the officials. It's not also just completely on Cal either, because Cal blew that 35-10 lead. They had all the momentum. They let Miami get back in the game. But yeah, late in the game, it was third down. Quarterback takes off running. Um, I don't know what the definition of targeting is, but I thought that was pretty close to it. I thought that was first down. Ball game's over. Cal wins. A six team in the top 10 goes down. Everything. But then I got more worried as the longer it took for them to review it. As after like 2 or 3 minutes, I'm like, why are they still reviewing this? very obviously targeting. I don't know what they could possibly be looking at. And then obviously they don't rule it a targeting penalty, which, yeah, still blows my mind. And then obviously leads to Miami going down the field and scoring, getting the win. But yeah, that one. I'm really not worried about the one from last weekend where this was just blatant, obvious targeting. I don't know how else to say it. But then at the same time, I'm not blaming it all 100% on the officials because Cal put themselves in that situation by blowing that 25-point lead that they had in the second half. So it's a screw up by the ACC officials in the replay booth and on Cal for not finishing that football game.
I will say I agree. Cal did have a big lead in this game, but like you said, had this been called a first down, this is ball game. So to me, it doesn't matter as much that they blew the point. It blew the points and blew the big lead because had the right call been made on the field, just like 2 weeks ago, had the right call been made on the field, that they overturned. Had the right call been made in this scenario, Cal would be victorious. And I think to me that's what bothers me so much about this sequence is that even with the blown lead, had the right call been made, Cal still would have won this game.
But how about Cal game day though? I will give Cal college game day. They showed out for that, so I'll give Cal credit. And it shows. I saw a bunch of people saying it's amazing whenever college game day goes to these places that they usually don't go to. You see the passion level of these fan bases a lot more than people actually think. So it's great. They're going to a fun one in obviously Eugene, Oregon this weekend. But no, it was fun on watching college game day and just the overall atmosphere around a game in a weekend again that not many people thought was going to be as legendary as it was.
Yeah. So then we'll start with the Friday game, a big Friday game. Syracuse stuns UNLV, 44-41. And look, this was a close game, but Kyle McCord played really well. Syracuse still showing some life. And UNLV, look, this is part of the issue. Sometimes you schedule these big matchups to try and prove yourself. This was probably the best Power Four team they've played so far this season, and they lost. So they went out and look, you can't fault them for going out and trying to build up that strength of schedule. But sometimes you do lose these games, these close games, and I'm sure UNLV wishes they could get this one back and have closed this one out.
They really do. Fortunately for them, they still get to play Boise State, so maybe a chance at a bit of redemption to kind of move back up. But listen, Syracuse played well and all. UNLV did this to themselves. They had way too many penalties and mistakes in this game. They should have won this game by double digits. But a big one, that 4th and 1 late in the drive, they had the unnecessary roughness call, several other mistakes I could go on and on about on offense when it comes to it. So it's just a bad loss. And we talked about it kind of, did they use all their magic from that QB drama on one game? It seems like they might have done that in this Syracuse game. But like I said, only they're 4-1. Listen, they got to play at Oregon State still. They host Boise State. That's going to be a very important 2 weeks for them. But really, yeah, you can't lose any more games if you're UNLV.
Yeah, agreed. SMU moves to 5-1 with a win over number 22 Louisville. And look, honestly, I think the QB move for SMU has really solved a lot of their problems. Preston Stone looked like he was going to be kind of an answer at the beginning of the season coming into the year, but it looks like moving on from him is maybe the best move that this team could make right now. They're playing super well. Louisville, just a complete skid, almost, photographic, almost identical to last year with the way this team kind of falls apart. And so for me, with this Louisville team, it's just like Jeff Brom is clearly a talented coach, and clearly he's unlocking something in Louisville. But right now, in these big games that this team needs to win, he can't get the job done. And so, really, I think Louisville's next big step is to start winning these big games. But for SMU, impressive. They had a slow start to the year, but now this team moving to 5-1, they look like the contender in the ACC that we kind of thought they were going to be.
Yeah, I mean, that dual threat factor there. I mean, Kevin Jennings is incredible. Obviously, if you saw our player of the week polls, I had him in my top two for that. He was incredible in the game for SMU. And like I said, yeah, they are back to being a contender. Everyone, whenever they lost to BYU, was kind of like, wow, they lost to BYU. Maybe they're not going to be good. BYU's not doing too bad themselves. So I think it works out to say they played a pretty talented team. Of course, they still have to play Pittsburgh, who's been shown to be a really talented football team as well. But yeah, there's a chance maybe after all the talk. I mean, they're undefeated in ACC play still so far despite that loss to BYU and everyone kind of writing them off early in the year. So, yeah, it's good for them. It's really good for them. Louisville, like you mentioned, it's just earlier in the season this year with them choking multiple games in a row. Um, and to me, again, the factor comes down to, again, several turnovers and the defense really, you kind of got put in a hole early. You were down by 11 at halftime, gave up 24 points in that first half. You really were playing from behind the whole way. So, yeah, obviously you need to work on getting out to better starts. But like you said, this is a team obviously with a great coach who we've seen have success at Purdue, and now he had success last year at Louisville. But they need to finish ball games in these big moments. You're absolutely right.
Then we've got number 24 Texas A&M stomping number 9 Missouri 41-10. And look, not a lot of excuses for Mizzou in this game. They're at home. They've got their team. And they just faced off against an A&M team that played Connor Weigman in this game. I was a little bit surprised to not see Marcel Reed start this game. But Weigman didn't turn the ball over, didn't have any touchdowns though. The real story of this game was Le'Veon Moss and the way he was able to dominate the ground game for Texas A&M.
I mean, you want to talk about a butt whooping? You got it right here. I mean, listen, I picked A&M. I felt confident A&M would win this game, but I didn't have 41-10 being the final score of them beating them this bad. Like you said, it really, to me, it just started from the second that game kicked off. They had the fourth down play for Mizzou on their opening drive. They take the shot down the field. There's a flag originally thrown for pass interference, and then they pick it up, and then A&M goes down the field in 4 plays and scores a touchdown. And then after that, it was like that broke Missouri. It was almost like that play broke them. But I mean, everything was going A&M's way, just dominant. And then that beautiful punt to end the first half. I mean, that everything was going A&M's way in this game. And listen, they're 5-1 on the year. The one loss to a very talented Notre Dame team, as we've seen. Obviously, they got to play LSU still, maybe some other SEC teams, but it all sets up where, after several other top SEC teams lost this past weekend, Austin, that they are kind of trying to get up into that upper echelon of the top teams in the SEC, where, we might see them play Texas not once, but possibly twice at the end of the year. And for Missouri, listen, obviously the loss is bad, but you still have some games against Alabama and Oklahoma to try to get a little get back. But the problem, like I said in the preseason, this defense for them is not good. They don't try to be aggressive defensively at all. That's what costs them in this game. And it also costs them any game down the line if they get behind early.
Yeah, exactly. Then we have Vanderbilt getting their first win against an AP number 1 overall team ever in a 40-35 victory over Alabama. And look, I think, a lot of people talk about the aggressiveness of Vandy and how they were willing to take chances. And I think that's important. But the thing that I think is even more impressive with this team and why this team won this game is, look, we've seen this before with Bama under Saban, the way sometimes they get down in games, but then once they start hitting those big plays, coming out into the second half, they start to find their footing and they start to get momentum, and then they start to steamroll you in the second half. And look, that first drive for Alabama, they come out, Milroe gets the touchdown. Look, I thought, okay, this is where Alabama starts to creep back in. And then, look, Vandy, to their credit, went down the field and scored. But then they had the big, long touchdown play to Ryan Williams, who's only 17 years old. But then Vandy goes down the field and scores again. And it was the way that even with these big explosive plays that usually get this Alabama team back into a game, back with momentum, no matter where they play, Vandy showed out. They were aggressive, but not just aggressive. They were effective, and they responded every time they gave up points to close out this game. Man, this was an impressive performance from this Vanderbilt program.
Truly was. Big round of applause to you, sir, for the bet of the week win on this one. Absolutely incredible. Disappointed you didn't go money line though.
Yeah.
A real man would have gone money line there. I'm just saying. But no,
I told you spread was way too big.
you and correct you are. But listen, the main points and stuff I'll get to in a sec. But the thing that just amazed me is like before this game happening, if you had told me that Vanderbilt would upset Bama, I would have been like, okay, what fluke plays did Vanderbilt have in this game? What did Bama screw up on? And then if you actually watch the game, it wasn't none. It really wasn't none of that. I mean, Vanderbilt just wire to wire outplayed Bama this entire football game. They outplayed them. You Bama fans can't be like, we got cheated or, we just had a couple fluke plays. No, it's not a fluke play when your defense cannot stop the run game, cannot stop deep passes down the field, and not being able to convert drives early in the game come back to haunt you and you're playing from behind the whole way. So, yeah, incredible. But similar to you, when Bama scored that touchdown in the second half to make it 23-21, I was like, oh, great. Here we go. Now they're awake. Fine. The
Yep.
Vandy dream was dead now. Let's just hope they cover the 22-point spread. But then they're driving down the field. They get that 4th and 1. And in my mind, there's a part of me that thought they were going to be conservative and try to kick a field goal or something. I'm like, you're not going to beat Bama being conservative in this game. You're going to beat Bama being aggressive. Now, did I think they would launch a 40-yard touchdown pass down the field on 4th and 1? Absolutely not. But it was electric. It was incredible. And the only thing more incredible than this game, Austin, is what took place after, with the goalposts making it all the way to Broadway. I'm sure there were some bachelorette parties that were absolutely devastated by the goalposts ruining their plans to get to the club or something on time, whether anything like that. But it was so much fun to see, and I'm loving all the love that Vandy is getting. So yeah, it was a phenomenal game. Absolutely the most fun I had watching a game so far this year.
Yeah, I completely agree there. Um, Arkansas finally closed out a game, and it was a big game against number four Tennessee. And kind of in similar fashion, you can't really say, oh, this was a fluke win from Arkansas. Look, the offense wasn't great, but the defense was phenomenal against one of the most explosive offenses in the entire country. Um, and really, to me, it came down to Landon Jackson. Look, he only had 1.5 sacks, only had 3 tackles, I think, but he was constantly getting into the backfield and forcing Tennessee to either throw the ball away or throw a short conservative pass. They just were not allowed to get comfortable. And man, this was really impressive. The scary thing for this game for Arkansas, fortunately, they have a bye week. That injury to Taylon Green. Oh man, I thought he was done for the season. I don't know how he's up walking around. I don't know how there's no structural damage to that knee. But prayers up for Taylon Green, and hopefully he'll be back for the LSU game in 2 weeks' time.
You think I heard officially that it's MCL sprain is the most likely thing, so that might keep him out of the LSU game or make him a game time decision. But the good news, like you said, there's a bye week in between, so that could maybe help him out and get faster. But listen, this game was about as stressful as it would be if you're an Arkansas fan. Number one, they shut down Tennessee. And listen, the thing with Tennessee over the past couple of years with Josh Heupel, they've been amazing offensively, but their defense was always the problem. Now this year, their defense is amazing. Defense is incredible. But what cost them was the offense not being able to click with a freshman quarterback on the road. That's what cost them here. But yeah, this should have been more than 3-0 Arkansas at halftime. Arkansas was in the red zone so many times or driving down the field and they couldn't finish the drives off. It should be a 17-0 game at halftime, and then we blow them out in the second half. That's how it should have gone. But that's not how it did go. And it was a defensive battle the whole way. It was a stressful game. When Tennessee came out in the second half to score those 2 touchdowns, go up 14-3. Oh man, I mean, it's basically like my rants this year, Austin. I'm like, there goes freaking Sam Pittman again, losing a very winnable game against a good team. He's going to go out and do this again. I freaking hate this team. I hate everything. Whatever. I'm going to go cry. But then they get the drive to go score a touchdown. And then obviously you had the Taylor Green injury that occurred, which I will just flat out say the one of the dirtiest cheap shots I've ever seen from a Tennessee football player. Absolutely pathetic to go out and try to take out a quarterback like that. And several other plays by Tennessee in this game. Just play the right way. There ain't no reason to get dirty. Handle and try to win straight up. It ain't hard to do. Clearly it was for you on Saturday night. But no, obviously Taylor Green gets injured. Malachi Singleton comes in, and the offense is struggling to get going most of the fourth quarter. But this defense, Austin, this freaking defense is incredible and favorable. You mentioned Landon Jackson, all kinds of guys helped out here on defense. You had him. You had Cameron Ball, who was incredible. He had a sack as well. I mean, there were so many guys that were dominant for them on this defense, and they gave Arkansas a chance at the end of the game, courtesy of Malachi Singleton making one or two throws. And then, man, I tell you what, I know that Jaquindon Jackson's going to be our starting running back, and Rashad Divinion's not bad, but Braylon frickin' Russell is the next great Razorback running back. He was dominant every time he got the football in this game. He was incredible. Keep in mind, freshman, homegrown talent in Benton, Arkansas. Hey, yeah, Sam, there's a tip. Keep the in-state talent in state. Maybe I'd like you a little bit more if you pulled that off. But no, he helped out. They got the drive. They very much let Tennessee very much let Arkansas score at the end of that game. I don't care what anyone says. They let them score at the end of that game.
They
But
had
then
to.
the defense, they had to. And it was a 1 point game. They did get another first down. They could waste the clock, kick a field goal, and win on a walk-off field goal. But then they get down the field. The defense makes another phenomenal play late. And then Nico, again, I mentioned a freshman QB on the road in that environment. That last play, the pressure got to him. He didn't know where the line of scrimmage was, didn't pay attention to the clock, didn't pay attention to any of that. And it cost Tennessee at least a chance to throw to the end zone to try to win the game. But all in all, my big thing is Arkansas, keep Travis Williams up there. Either make him the highest paid coordinator in the country or make him the head coach after this year. I don't care. You do not let that man leave Fayetteville because it won't be long till someone else sees it and gives him an opportunity.
Absolutely. Last little note to touch on in this Arkansas game. Do you think this win is enough for Sam Pittman to maybe keep his job for the rest of the year?
I think there's an argument for it. Obviously, I'm not going to say one game saves a man's job. I want to see how the rest of the year goes. But if this leads to more confidence and builds on the confidence of the team to go out and win big games, then yeah, I mean, as much as I've hated on Sam Pittman, then he deserves another year. But I want to see consistency. I don't want to just have this one win over Tennessee and then we lose a whole bunch of close games the rest of the season. I want to see more consistency winning close games still. This is a good step towards it. He needs to build off it the rest of the season. And then maybe I'll have a talk about picking him up in Stillwater where I left him at earlier this year.
Yeah. My thing is, I feel like, they haven't lost any games that they're necessarily were supposed to win on paper. But there were the games they've lost, they were up in, they had chances to win these games, and they didn't close them out. And I feel like that was enough to maybe by this point him already be fired. I feel like now with a win over number 4 Tennessee, it at least buys you till the end of the year, no matter what happens for the rest of the season. I think if they trusted him that much and he comes out and he beats number 4, I think they're going to at least hold on to him for the year. And then depending on how we finish out this year, decides what happens next year. Um,
Absolutely.
but let's carry on into Minnesota. Stunning number 11 USC, 24-17. PJ Fleck, absolute gutsy call. One of my favorite coaches in college football to go for it on 4th and goal, right there on the goal line to put in a touchdown. He didn't want to go up by 3. He wanted to go up by 7 and make sure his team put USC in an absolute bind. And then they got to Miller Moss and didn't let him put together another game-winning drive like he did against LSU.
I tried to tell you guys all what was going to happen here. It was a heads up. I said, listen, I don't know if they're going to win, but Minnesota's built a lot like Michigan, and Michigan gave USC trouble. I thought Minnesota could give them But yeah, this was just an old school Big Ten West football game. More points than I like in my Big Ten West football games, in my personal opinion. But like you said, end of the game, they're at the goal line, fourth and goal. Yeah, the fact that PJ Fleck's like, you know what? No, I don't want the field goal. I want to get this in the end zone and make them go down and score a touchdown to tie this thing up, not give them a chance to win it. And they got in the end zone despite initially being ruled short. And then you had the defense make the big interception in the red zone in Minnesota. Look, this is a fun win for them, 3-3. PJ Fleck always has his teams well coached. And this was a point of in Lincoln Riley and them. We hyped them up at the start of the year, but it seems like in these games where they're playing against these physical Big Ten teams, they're having trouble beating them and letting them hang around. And listen, you still got to play Penn State this upcoming weekend. You still got to play a Rutgers team that likes to run the football. You still got to face a Nebraska team with a great defense and a team that likes to run the football. And not to mention Notre Dame, who has a great defense and likes to run the football. If you're getting worn out by Minnesota and Michigan this early in the year, it could be trouble down the line in some of these games against really physical teams as well in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and it really hurts because at the beginning of the season, like you said, we hyped them up. But really, we talked about how much better this defense was than it's been in the past seasons for Lincoln Riley at USC and at Oklahoma. And it really looked like they invested a bunch into their defense. And I still do think the defense is a lot better than it's been for Lincoln Riley. But still not able to stop the run is clearly proving to be a problem. And I think that that's what everybody should game plan to do until they prove they can stop it. And then finally, we had Washington defending their home field in a 27-17 victory over number 10 Michigan. Look, Washington has been just flat out impressive to me. They lost virtually everybody to either the NFL or to the transfer portal or to the coaching carousel. Really kind of a rebuilt team and a revamped roster. But they go out, I believe they're 4-2, and they are playing some great games. They beat a number 10 Michigan team. I say that with air quotes because I think we all realistically knew that this Michigan team wasn't really a top 10 team, and they haven't proven it. And look, it just extends to here. Washington goes out and gets a big win at home and showing that they're adjusting to the Big Ten nicely.
Yeah, I mean, people got to remember Jed Fish, a great coach at Arizona. People got to remember that he was our coach of the year last year, if I'm correct.
Yep.
But listen, Michigan, this game went exactly how I thought it was. You didn't have a passing game. That's what cost you. You got down double digits in the fourth quarter. That's what cost you. You fell behind. Not having a passing game led to you taking a long time to get in the end zone and get back into this game. So, listen, they were probably the most fraudulent top 10 team I've seen since probably USC from last year when they were in the top 10. Probably the most fraudulent top 10 team I've seen. So until they get a passing game, I mean, it's hard to have any faith in Michigan at all. I'm really surprised that they're still ranked, which we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, Washington a good win, 4-2. And I will say a pattern I'm seeing is the geographic thing where we talked about, man, those West Coast teams going north is going to be really tough on them, in which it's been vice versa. When those north teams go to the West Coast, it has been an issue for them. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out for Washington. Obviously, we're not expecting big things, but it's a really good win to have and get a little get back from what happened in January.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, get a little get back from what happened in January, even though almost no players that played in that game are there, except maybe Grady Gross, the kicker for Washington. Really, it still feels good to get that back. The school still thinking about that loss to Michigan. But look, this was a great weekend of football. A lot of changes happened in the rankings. So here's what we did. I messaged Waiter on Sunday morning, and I said, hey, let's put together our own top 25 before the AP poll comes out and we have no bias, because I truly believe that the AP poll, there was no wrong way to do it. There was so much turning upside down, flipping this whole thing, lots of people winning, lots of people losing. that you couldn't get everybody that should be ranked in the top 25. Really, there wasn't a wrong way to do it. And I think the top 25 they did on their own was good. But I wanted to have our own approach here and kind of see what we thought, just because there can be so many different outcomes. So I'm going to lead off with my top 25 here, and then you can make some explanations as you go, and then we'll just quickly cover what the actual top 25 looks like after you do yours, of course. But first, we start with mine at number one. Look, I put Texas in there. I felt it was obvious that they needed to shift back in the number one spot. The only reason they shifted out was Alabama just had that big marquee win. But clearly now with this big loss, Texas needs to get back at number one. Ohio State at two. Georgia. I put Georgia at three personally. I could get why maybe they didn't end up at number three. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I had Georgia at three, then Oregon at four, Penn State at five, Miami at six, then Alabama at seven, Ole Miss creeping back up to eight, LSU at nine, and Notre Dame at 10. Then at 11, I had Clemson. And I wanted to touch on this. I put Notre Dame at 10. I know maybe for some people that's a little bit controversial, but I think they had the loss to Northern Illinois. I think they've clearly shaken that off and shown that that's not who they are. And I think that this Texas A&M loss or Texas A&M win looks better and better by the week. I mean, this A&M team is playing better and better football as the season goes on. They just beat the number 9 team. I think as they start creeping up, people need to remember that this Notre Dame team won that game, and I think that should help them out. At 12, I had Tennessee. 13, I had Iowa State. 14, I had Texas A&M. 15, Utah, and 16, Oklahoma. I didn't move Utah and Oklahoma too much because they did not play this week. I didn't want them to move down, but I didn't want them to skyrocket up with all these other people losing just to move up. I wanted them to stay in a similar spot because they didn't play at all. Missouri down to 17, K-State at 18, Boise State cracking my top 20 at number 19. This 5 spots right here from 20 to 25, or I should say 6 spots, this was the toughest decisions I really had to make here. I put Indiana at number 20. Then at 21, I put Syracuse back in the top 25 at 21. I put Pitt at 22, 5-0. I think you got to get them into the rankings. At 23, I got SMU into the rankings. And then at 24 and 25, I went Navy and then Army. I think it's long past time that these two teams get into the rankings this season. But I also wanted to introduce my teams that were in the hunt for these last couple spots, because sure, I just named some teams and it seems easy, fine and dandy from there. All of those teams except SMU were undefeated. So you look at it on paper and you say, well, oh, that makes sense why you made that decision. But let's pair it with, look, I had Michigan and USC, who I was considering, 2 teams that were top 10, number 10 and number 11. But now they both have 2 losses, who I left out. Illinois, who I dropped out of the rankings, and I did this. Look, they are another team that had a bye week this past week. But from my perspective, I would have dropped them out of the rankings last week. So I left them out of my rankings this week, even though AP poll didn't end up doing that. I felt like there were some teams to squeeze in, so I left Illinois out. UNLV, even though they're 4-1, I felt obviously they were 25. They lost. They've got to fall out of the top 25. Sam Houston off to a surprising 5-1 start, at least to me. So they were certainly in consideration. But like I said, a lot of undefeated teams I wanted to get in there. Toledo's 4-1. Nebraska just had a big win to put them at 5-1. Washington with a big win that puts them at 4-2. Same with Arkansas, also at 4-2 after a top 10 win. And Vandy beating the number 1 team in the nation at 3-2. So I had to consider all this. And then, like I said, some of these factors, some of these teams just beat a top 10 team. But really it came down to I'm a fan at this point in the season starting to recognize teams that are still undefeated, because even if your schedule's easy, even if you haven't played the toughest schedule, we've seen now this week that the easy games still can show us what kind of team you are. So I think being undefeated at this point in the season shows what kind of caliber of a team you are, and you should start getting some consideration in the top 25.
All right. Um, Austin, mine might go a little fast because 1 through 6, we are completely the same.
That's what
One
I
through
like.
six, we are exactly the same. Texas 1, Ohio State 2, Georgia 3, Oregon 4, Penn State 5, Miami 6. Now, this is where my curveball comes in, number 7. Sometimes we've seen it with the AP poll. They put teams ridiculously high moving up sometimes. And I felt after a weekend like this, if it was going to happen, it would be this weekend. So I had them moving Iowa State up to number 7.
Okay.
Um, and listen, I think Iowa State deserves a lot of credit for how they played. 8, I had Ole Miss. 9, I had Notre Dame. And BYU, I had making it in at number 10. Now I have
Okay.
Bama and Tennessee at 11 and Bama at 12. I think that is due to the fact that I know that they both should still be in contention, but I think there should have been a little bit more of a drop back after losing 2 games, each losing a game against an unranked opponent. So that's where I had that. 13, I had LSU, 14, I had Indiana. I feel like Indiana deserves some love to keep on moving up. 15, I have A&M. 16, I had Clemson. With Clemson, they played Florida State, so I basically treated it like a bye week pretty much. So I was like, I'm just going to keep them in that same spot. They really didn't do nothing amazing. They were just kind of staying right where they were. 16 or 17, I had Utah. 18, I had Boise State moving up. 19, I had Oklahoma. 20, I had Kansas State. Like you said, 21 through 25 was insanely tough to figure out here. But the way I did mine, 21, I kept Illinois in there. I feel like that they deserve that based on some of their wins and their start to the season. 22, I had Pittsburgh there, 5 and 0. Got to give them credit. 23, I had SMU in there, so had to keep them credit. 24, I put Missouri in there. I feel like they, in my opinion, even though they lost, they should still be in the rankings given how high they were. And then 25, I've got Navy making it in. And now go ahead and say the teams that were in contention for mine, obviously Army. And I was choosing between Army and Navy for this final spot. But Navy beat a very talented Memphis team this year, and I think that was the difference maker to get them in the rankings over Army. If I had to choose one of them, that was my main reasoning there.
That's exactly
My
Navy's.
other ranking, the only ones I chose, obviously USC, I felt like deserved it as maybe a chance. Nebraska, obviously. Here's one not many people talking about. I think Texas Tech deserves at least a shot. They're 3-0 in Big 12 play, 5-1 so far this year. So technically in first place in the Big 12, really, if you look at the standings there. So I thought they deserved a chance. If Colorado beats Kansas State this weekend, I had them close to considering, but I was like, let me see what they do against Kansas State this weekend, and then I might have a talk about putting them up there. And obviously Arkansas and Vanderbilt as well. But that's mine. So we had a lot of similarities in ours, just a couple of differences.
Yeah, and what you were talking about with Navy, that's why Navy's 24 in my rankings and Army's 25. I was like, how am I going to put these teams in here? But like you said, that Memphis win, I think, is a big win for Navy that I think gives them the edge over Army right now in considerations. And it seems like with the AP poll voters, 10 more votes to Navy than to Army. I think that shows that a lot of people value that win and value what Navy's done this season. But let's look at the real top 25. Obviously, we won't linger too long on this like we usually do because we've really given kind of our thoughts on where these teams stand. Um, Number one, Texas, two, Ohio State, three, Oregon, four, Penn State, and five, Georgia. Really the same top five teams we considered. Just Georgia basically staying at five while everybody kind of moved up around them. Miami at
I was
six. So
just
we also,
surprised Georgia didn't move at all. That was my shocker. I thought they might move
yeah,
up like one spot or something. It amazed me that they stayed at 5. So
I completely agree with you there. Then Alabama falling into seven. Tennessee got the most generous drop you could maybe ever expect to see in the AP poll. We're talking about losing to an unranked team, and look, it's 4-2 Arkansas, and they've been close in all their games, even in the losses. So they're not the worst team to lose to. But four spots, especially when Bama dropped six, It's generous. It kept them in the top 10. It was an interesting choice. Ole Miss sliding in there at 9, and then Clemson sliding in the top 10, which I don't love because, like I said, the one game they've actually played, like one big game they played this season, they got throttled.
Yeah. And I will say, I kind of felt that's why Tennessee and Bama dropping. I feel like if the committee, and obviously they're not the final say people that say that's the college football playoff, but I would have made a statement to say, hey, you lose against an unranked opponent when you're that high, you're dropping out of the top 10 for a week and then maybe work your way up. That's at least how I would have done it. But Clemson being 10, I mean, I didn't think their win against Florida State was impressive enough to move up 5 spots. I felt like you should have kept them like I did, kept them like right where they were, or maybe like pretty much in that same spot.
Then we had Notre Dame and Illinois tied at 11. Uh,
You mean
then,
Iowa State?
oh,
You said
yeah,
Illinois.
Illinois. Slipped my mind there. Illinois is down there. Don't worry. Notre Dame and Iowa State tied there at 11. Then at 13, LSU stayed put. At 14, we had BYU moving up. Texas A&M all the way up to 15. Utah up to 16. Boise State got a great move up to 17. Oklahoma, Indiana, and Kansas State all tied at 18. Missouri dropping all the way down to 21. 22 is Pitt. 23 Illinois. Michigan somehow stays in the top 25 at 24, and SMU joins our top 25 as the number 25 team in the nation.
Can I just say this, and I mean this wholeheartedly? I mean, I was shocked USC fell out of the rankings completely, but if they were going to fall out of the rankings completely, I don't get how Michigan gets to stay in there. I don't get that at all. I feel like both of them should have been unranked, or if they were, one of them was going to be ranked. I would have given an edge to USC in it. At least that's just my opinion on it. But as far as the rest of them, the three-way tie for 18 is ridiculous. I didn't think it would be that hard to come to an agreement on 18, 19, and 20 and just moving them down 2 spots, but here we are with it the way it is. It's an interesting top 25 to say the least.
Yeah, it's something else. But let's take it into those teams and player of the weeks. My number one team of the week is Vanderbilt. Obviously, I think enough said there. Number 2 was Arkansas. Number 3 was Texas A&M, and really, I just organized these teams by the number ranking in which the team you beat in the top 10. Vandy beat number 1, Arkansas beat number 4, A&M beat number 9. I think clearly that goes to put those teams there. Same reason I put Minnesota at number 1 or at number 4, beating number 10, even though number 10 is not that, or number 11, even though number 11 is not super huge. I wanted to get them in there and show that I like what they're doing in Minnesota. And then Washington at number 5, really destroying a Michigan team who's ranked a lot higher than their talent really shows.
Definitely, definitely.
That was my top 5.
Oh, oh, sorry. I like lost my train of thought there for like half a second.
Oh, good.
I was trying to act like I just like came back to you talking. I was just like, yeah, definitely. I don't know what happened. I was like staring at the screen the whole time, and I'm just like, what did he just say?
No, you're fine. I've had those flip ups many a times during the NFL episode. Sometimes I forget which teams we're talking about right after you say them.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, man, I mean, but that top 5 you're talking about, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out again. We're going to have a lot of great matchups this weekend that could determine, especially, I mean, 2 versus 3 in that kind of top 5 there with the rankings. But as far as my team and players of the week, listen, I'm just going to say off the top of my head, did you say teams first? I'm assuming we always say teams first. Good to know. Good to know I'm not completely lost my mind. Good. But my top 5, number 5, I had to put Texas A&M in there for the win against Missouri, just flat out dominate them. Number 4, had to show some love to the Louisiana Monroe Warhawks, taking down James Madison this past weekend. ULM quietly 4-1 on the season. You love to see it. You'll love to see it. Number 3, had to put Minnesota in there. It was a really, really impressive win for them to beat a USC team. And then look, the top two, let's just get them out of the way. Arkansas beating number 4 Tennessee, Vanderbilt, number 1 team to me, beating the number 1 team. Those two, it was not a discussion about being 1 and 2. It was just about sorting 3 through 5 there. But Austin, it seems like, at least based on the polls I saw, this was a really tight race between Arkansas and Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and it was, like you said, Arkansas and Vanderbilt racked up all the votes. But what helped Vanderbilt is we had a tie between Arkansas and Vanderbilt, one of our polls, and that helped Vanderbilt garner a little bit of extra points, which put this team. Hold on, just at a. Am I still here? You still following me?
Yes, you're still here. Don't worry, you're still here. You're still
Okay,
here.
perfect. I had a little glitch out with my phone there. Like I was saying, they had a tie in a poll, which got Vandy a little bit of extra points they shouldn't have had. Since it was number one on both of our polls, they just barely edged out the. Actually, take that back. Arkansas just barely edged out Vandy. They had a tie on a poll that helped Arkansas get points that they shouldn't have had. My fault on that one. Um, so
I'm
yeah,
all over the place right now. I mean, my
yeah,
gosh, neither one of us knows what's going on here.
just a whole mess. Yeah, I got my old train of thought messed up. But Arkansas stole a poll from Vandy, is what I meant to say. They got the tie, and they got some extra votes. And I kind of saw this one coming. Look, we're in Arkansas. We have a mainly Arkansas fan base. But I think of a week for Arkansas to be team of the week, this is certainly a very fair opportunity for it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think they definitely deserved it. I had a feeling that it was gonna be them. I mean, let's just not pretend to be shocked here, but it's fun. I think this is the first time, really, since we started doing this, that Arkansas has actually won a poll. I think so.
Yeah.
Um, I'm glad to finally have Arkansas join. It makes me happy to see.
Yeah, I mean, we were waiting on it. Notre Dame won like our first or second week doing this. So it's nice to finally see Arkansas joining along in the party. And then for my players of the week, number one, I went with Levon Moss, running back from Texas A&M. This guy was a freak, unbelievable. Really had a huge game against Missouri. At number two, I went with Landon Jackson. The statistics aren't exactly going to back this one up, but Landon Jackson was a presence. Even though he wasn't always hitting the quarterback, he was forcing a lot of mistakes that Tennessee offense does not usually make. At number three, I went with Ashton Jeanty. I really wanted to put him higher, and I definitely could have the way he performed. But I wanted to reward some other people because Jeanty didn't play the full game. I wish I'd let him play a full game and run for 300 yards. Um, but at number four, I had Diego Pavia. He really, look, we know how talented he is as a runner, but he really showed off how talented he can be throwing the football against the number one team in the nation. And at number five, I wanted to give Kyle McCord some credit. This is the second time I put Kyle McCord at number five, but he's really putting together some solid passing games this season.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he deserves the love for it, and many of those guys deserve it. Yeah, if they ever gave Ashton Jeanty a full game, I don't even want to think about what the statistics would end up being on that. But
Yeah.
for mine, so number five, I had Connor Weigman. Listen, we both said that we didn't think he should have been the one starting. He went out and proved us wrong and played a pretty dang good game against Missouri there. So I had to give him love. Number four, like you said, Landon Jackson. The stats don't really tell the story there, but he was flat out dominant. I mean, considering I saw a Tennessee tackle put him in a chokehold to stop him from getting to the quarterback, that tells me plenty just from that alone. Number three, like I said, Ashton Jeanty. I could not imagine what he would have put up in a full game. He's still on pace to have more rushing yards than Barry Sanders did in his college season, which is just insane. And you look at his comparison of his numbers compared to what other Heisman winning running backs have done, ridiculous. Number two, this is a new one. Kevin Jennings from SMU. He was phenomenal throwing the ball, phenomenal running too. And like you said, it's been clear since they made the full-time switch to him as a starter, they have gotten back to the team that we thought they probably could be in the preseason. And then number one, listen, there was no argument for it. Similar to the top two, Diego Pavia cleared at number one for me. This man, I don't know how to say it, is other than a freaking legend already in his career. I mean, he was turned after the win. I'm not going to finish the full statement he made there,
Yeah.
but he was turned after the win. He was dominant on the ground. But like you mentioned, the big throws down the field, the 4th and 1 touchdown pass, making the big completions, and nonetheless beating number 1 Alabama. He had to be my number 1 player.
Yeah, and on the polls, look, I was honestly surprised that Landon Jackson didn't win any polls this week. So look, even though we had him on both of our polls, the Arkansas bias didn't completely take over. The people spoke. They liked Genty. They liked Pavia. But it really came down to Pavia being number one on your list. Really helped him out with the votes. So Diego Pavia, our player of the week this week.
You love to see it. You love to see it. He is a beast. Did he win earlier this year, or is he just up for it?
I want to say, I was just about to say, I think he won another one this week. I'd have to go back and actually do the research to remember, but I'm pretty sure he won one earlier in the season.
Yeah, I think it was because he was up there after they beat Virginia Tech. I know he was a finalist for it. I don't know if he ended up winning it, but if he didn't win it, he sure as heck deserved to win it this week. So I'm really happy for him. I'm glad to see that he ended up getting the player of the week. And again, different team and players of the week. You love to see it, Austin. It keeps on going. After what we had the previous week, it's good to get back to the chaos that we had before last week.
Yeah, nice palate cleanser to get us back to pandemonium. Let's quickly touch on a couple game previews here. Number seven, Alabama versus South Carolina. Look, the South Carolina's clearly proven they're no cakewalk this week, and Alabama certainly has learned that even the cakewalks can be a rude awakening for them. So Alabama's got to wake up, get back to what they do, and I think they need to win this one big to prove that they can win the easy ones.
I mean, to me, this is just setting up, it seems like the perfect bounce back opportunity for Alabama. So, you hope they go out there and handle it, but it's a tough South Carolina defense they're facing here. So I'm interested to see how it's going to go there. But I fully expect a big bounce back by Alabama in this game. No question in my mind.
Yeah, me too. Kind of in a similar sense, Tennessee versus Florida, a tense game. These two teams don't like each other. We know that much. But again, Tennessee's looking for a big bounce back. Florida can be, maybe a surprise contender in this game. But I really think this is an opportunity for Tennessee to kind of lock in, refocus, and have a really big game.
I mean, this is basically setting up for Tennessee to have a good bounce back opportunity, similar to Alabama. But Florida and them, they always play close. Similar to Arkansas A&M, whenever these two teams play, it's usually a really close game. But also, Florida has just mostly dominated this series for a while now. And this seems to me like it could be a possible letdown spot as well for Tennessee with Florida coming in. And Florida, listen, they're 3-2. Their two losses, keep in mind, are to a Miami team that's ranked in the top 10 and now an A&M team ranked in the top 15. So, listen, I think that Florida, I'm not saying Florida's a great team, but they are absolutely going to have a chance to compete in this game.
Then we've got Penn State versus USC, and look, this is one we circled at the beginning of the season on the calendar, a game to look out for. And while USC hasn't had the season they exactly hoped for, they don't have time to hang their heads in pity that they just lost that game. They've got to come out and try to defend their home turf because the Nittany Lions are not going to come quietly.
But I mean, for me with Penn State, they have really, and not to be mean them because we are both James Franklin stands on this show, let it be known. But I've not been impressed with what I've seen from Penn State through 5 weeks. And that's just kind of my opinion on. Now they're going on the road to a USC team with a good defense. I mean, this is, to me, it's setting up, and especially when you look at it, it's like, oh, number 5 versus unranked. Whenever you especially look back 10 with USC being ranked 11th last week, this is going to be a really close game. I would not be shocked at all if USC got the win because I think their defense is enough to shut down the Penn State offense. And I think that Penn and USC's offense with Miller Moss, even though he made some mistakes, he'll go out there. I think he can handle business. So I think this will be a really close game. Penn State has to come and play strong right away. They can't fall behind early.
Agreed. I think the big thing to watch out for, like you said, they've struggled with the physicality of some of these games. Even in the LSU game, you saw LSU found a lot of success running the ball. So I think Penn State's strategy, getting Nick Singleton going, and for USC, you've got to stop the run in this game or you will not win. Because look, we talk about it all the time. Drew Willar's got to play good. But if you let Nick Singleton have a big game, Drew Willar doesn't have to throw the ball at all.
Exactly.
And our last little game preview here, K State versus Colorado. You talked about this one. This is a big game in the Big 12. K State going on the road again, where they haven't had the best fortune. Look, that's where their one. That's where their big loss comes against BYU. They struggled against Tulane. Now playing against a Colorado team that's finding itself at what 4-1, 5-1,
Four
somewhere
and
in there.
one.
And now they're looking to get into the top 25 to start proving with their worth in the Big 12. This is a big clash for Big 12 opponents.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is like I said, if no one wants to take the Big 12 this year, Colorado seems like they could seemingly take it. For me, this game is literally polar opposites, and I'm expecting a lot of points. Kansas State's going to want to run the football. Colorado has had trouble stopping the run this year at points in some games. And for Kansas State, what will Avery Johnson do passing the ball on the road in these environments? We saw how it went when they needed him to throw at BYU. And for Colorado, listen, they like to throw the ball a lot. How would that K State secondary do when it comes to Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn? I think I'm thinking of the right one. I'm not trying to mix up him and his dad again like I have before. Um, but listen, I think it comes down to there's weaknesses from the defenses that both offenses are good at. I am expecting a lot of points in this late night game in Colorado.
Yeah. Then let's take it to the game picks. My first game pick is Cal versus number 22 Pitt. I have this game in here because this should be a top 25 ball game, and it's not. So who you got between Cal and Pitt?
This is an easy pick for me. Pitt rolls in this game. I know this sets up for a bounce back for Cal, but you're talking about not just a bounce back. They're going to have to go all the way across the country to play this bounce back game. I think this Pitt offense has shown how elite it is. I think Pitt rolls in this game comfortably. I think Pitt takes care of business.
I'm with you here. Look, I like Cal, and I think they're a good team, and I think they should have lost or should have won last week. But you look at it; it's now back-to-back weeks of this team getting really hyped up, going out and playing their best football, and coming up short to some teams that they really feel like they should beat in this ACC. And now with that, I think you're just spent. I think the energy and the chemistry and the morale is just down right now. And while Pitt's riding high, I think they're going to keep on trucking. I like the Pitt Panthers in this one. Then we've got number 1 Texas versus number 18 OU, the Red River rivalry renewed for the first time in the SEC. Who you got?
Oh man. Well, let's just say you can just throw the spread out in this game. If you go off of who the better team is in this, you're going to get it wrong most of the time. They always play close. It's always a great game. I'm going to give it to Texas, but not with a lot of confidence. The key for OU, how will their defense perform? If OU's defense can force a couple turnovers, I like their chances to knock off Texas in this game, especially with it being the first game that Quinn Ewers is back in a couple of weeks. But I'm going to go with Texas, not with a lot of confidence, but that OU defense will need to step up if they need to beat Texas.
I'm going to go with OU in this game. Look, like you said, these teams always play each other close. I think Texas is a good team, but like you said, Quinn Ewers will most likely be coming back from injury. It's not going to be an easy game. He missed the easy games on this schedule. Now they get into the grit of this SEC play. He comes back in a rivalry game. Look, he lost this game last year to Oklahoma, and I don't. So I mean, clearly, this is a team that can come out and win. I like Oklahoma in this game. I think the defense is going to come out and play well. I think they're going to take advantage of a rusty Quinn Ewers. I don't think he'll look bad, but I'll think he'll make some mistakes that he wouldn't have made had he been able to tune up a couple weeks ago or had he been playing this whole time. I like OU to win this game, not by much, though. This is going to be a razor-thin game. Then we've got number 9 Ole Miss versus number 13 LSU. Both of these teams want to make their case for who the top dog in the SEC is. Keep climbing, keep working for the SEC championship. Most likely, loser of this game is probably down in the dirt as far as SEC championship hopes are concerned. Who you got in this one in Baton Rouge?
This is not a hard pick to me. It's a night game in Baton Rouge. Are you kidding me? LSU performs so well in night games at home, no matter who the coach is. I got LSU win this game. I feel like I know the Ole Miss defense has improved and everything, but it's just hard for me to go against LSU at home at night in Baton Rouge. I can't go against them with that.
I'm gonna go against you here again. I'm gonna go with Ole Miss on the road here. Look, they got a big win to kind of fire them back up, and on top of that, a lot of things went their way in the top 10 and in the SEC. A lot of those top dogs took a loss in SEC play that they didn't really need to take, that they shouldn't have gotten. So Ole Miss basically gets their freebie. They get their Kentucky loss back because Alabama and Tennessee had themselves some colossal failures. So now I think you're confident. You're back in the top 10. Your hopes are renewed for an SEC championship and a college football playoff. You go in, LSU's had a week off, and something in the Brian Kelly era for LSU, they've just kind of struggled in these big matchups. Look, I know he's won some big games. I know he's been to an SEC championship at LSU. But overall, I think he has a hard time getting this team motivated to win the big games. It was certainly an issue for Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, even though I loved him at Notre Dame. I like Ole Miss to win this game and really solidify themselves back in that contender conversation. And finally, the big game of the weekend. Number 2, Ohio State versus number 3, Oregon. Who do you got?
Oh man, well, I'm not gonna say if I could date this game I would, because I mean this is a big matchup, but it's not, it's not one of those sexy matchups. It's not like one that you're like, yes, but I mean this is gonna be a great game. Look, neither of these teams has played anyone really elite up to this point, so this is the first litmus test for both these teams. To me, it's so close with both of them because neither one's really been that impressive to me. I feel like I have to go with the one that I think has the most talent on the roster. I'm going to give the edge to Ohio State in this game just because I feel like the overall more talent, but neither team has really proven anything to me. So I have no idea what to expect in this game. In all honesty, I have no idea what to expect. I would not be shocked if Oregon won, but I'm going to give an edge to the team that I think has the more talent on it, and that's Ohio State.
We're going to go against each other again. This is going to be a fun week watching a college football. I'm going to go with Oregon here. Look, this game's in Eugene. I do agree. I think Ohio State has a little bit more talent, but I think these teams are super close, even talent-wise. They both went to the transfer portal, loaded these teams up, and look, they've both been pretty underwhelming. So I'm going to go with the team that gets to play at home in their first big test in the Big Ten. I like the Oregon Ducks to take this game.
Okay. I don't blame you.
All righty. Finally, let's get into our bet of the week segment. Look, you told me you had 3 bet of the weeks this week, so I brought 3 bets of my own.
Okay. All right. So yeah, like I said, we're usually doing one, but with a weekend like this, with the games you have, you got to go with multiple. You got to. So I'll just go ahead and say this is if I was only have one, this would be the one. LSU plus 3.5. This is one I was immediately knew I was betting no matter what. I am so confident LSU is going to win this game. You're going to do it, which I say you're a bold man for doing it. Betting against LSU at Baton Rouge at night. I don't know about it. My other one is in the Ohio State Oregon game. I'm going to take the under 53.5 in that one. These are 2 really solid defenses. I'm not expecting a lot of points in this game. So yeah, give me under 53.5 in Ohio State Oregon. And then for my final one, let's pick a Friday night game for our final bet of the week. I'm going to take Arizona State plus 6.5 against Utah. Cam Rising, as far as I know, isn't playing. If he is, he's probably not going to be 100% in this game. I think Arizona State has performed way, way over people's expectations this year. Now they can maybe get a win or at least a cover in this game. Those are my 3 bets of the week here for week 7. Austin, what do you got?
I like to hear it. Look, I'm going to start off with an old reliable for me, a big old spread that I like. I'm going to go with Mississippi State plus 34 against the Georgia Bulldogs. This is one of my more daring picks, but something about this game was just calling my name. It's probably that big old 34. Then I like a little, I think we're going to see a little homage to the Pac-12 after dark. I like Wazoo versus Fresno State over 61 points. These are two flamethrower offenses that I think are going to cut it loose. And then finally, I like another big old spread, but in the opposite direction. I'm going to take Boise State minus 20.5 this weekend.
Play. Who does Boise State play this weekend?
That's a good question here. I'll take one peek and let you know.
Okay, I was gonna
Um,
say I was like, because if so, I might join you. Oh, they play Hawaii. Okay,
okay, yeah, that makes even more sense. Boise State,
it's
Hawaii, they're going to pull it off.
it's the Hawaii test again. I haven't done a Hawaii test in a minute, but I'm gonna have to do the Hawaii test to watch Ashton Genty run all over Hawaii in this game. So yeah, not bad bets there. So you go. You got 6 bets for the week, for this weekend. Parlay them together for all you want and make a lot of money, or do them individually, like I would recommend you do. Um, but
Yeah,
nonetheless, it should be. There's plenty of fun action that's going to be happening this weekend, Austin.
yeah, absolutely agree with you there. It's going to be an absolute blast. And if you so you know you thought last weekend was fun, this weekend should be better. We're really going to see the top dogs start to identify themselves. So make sure to tune in. The NFL episode will be out after this one. Make sure to give that a listen. But we want to thank you for listening. That's Austin Waiter. I'm Austin Hill. We'll see you.